And we should be live for the Steelers Depot live stream here on Monday, December 28th. Let me pull up the stream on my end. Dave Brown and I here answering any and all of your Steelers questions for the next hour and finally have a victory to talk about. Dave Bryan, as always, thanks for being here and how you doing?
Doing good. Happy Victory Monday. Hadn't had a chance to say that in several weeks here. Alone, just thumbing through the all 22 tape.
Yep, so am I. We'll have a lot of coverage for you guys later this week on the Colts game. And yeah, I haven't been able to do as many live streams lately because of the schedule and some of these Monday games. So good to be back and good to be talking Steelers with you guys. Again, feel free to ask a question in the chat for those who are here. If you want to have your question be guaranteed to be answered and asked, send us a super chat. Be sure to like the stream as well. That helps get more people into the chat. So we'll start things off right away, and we'll start with a super chat from Mutated Gino, who sends $2. So thank you very much. And he asks, aren't the first 15 plays based on film study? This is in reference in a conversation we've had about the Steelers' struggles with their opening script and opening drives. They've only scored one touchdown their last 31 possessions. To answer that question, it's based on film study. It's based on things that your offense is comfortable with. Usually, Fichtner's going to go to Ben and say, these are the plays we want to run. Do you like these plays? They'll keep what he likes. They'll throw out what he doesn't. Stuff like that. But to your overall point, yeah, it's frustrating to see the offense struggle, not only in the first drive, but over the last 6 games in the first quarter, scoring 0 points on offense and special teams in the first quarter in 6 straight games.
Yeah, I think pretty standard is they sit down and they go over what they've seen on tape and from defenses and what they hope to accomplish, and go over the plays they like and they don't like, and not just with Ben, but Mason, in case he gets into a game. What do you like? What don't you like? What do you feel more comfortable running in these situations? So is it exactly 15? I don't know if Steelers had to stay on the script, stay on script for 15 plays. That's like 5 series,
Yeah, just get the
3. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, look, that's what we think. That's what we've heard. That's the common thought that you hear thrown around the league. I don't know if Randy's ever been asked specifically that question, but and I'm sure there are situations where you go off script.
Right.
In some situations.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get to some more questions, there actually are, I think, a couple of questions about this. But to touch on the latest Steelers news, Dave, you were right about this one in the podcast today about Derwin Gray. And could he circle back to Pittsburgh? He will not. He's been claimed by the Jaguars as Jacksonville. Obviously, good chance to get number 1 overall pick. They are suiting up for 2021, and Derwin Gray is going to be part of that roster, it appears. So, not that I'm going to be apocalyptic about the loss of Gray, but I am bummed about that. The same way I was bummed about losing Fred Johnson last year.
Yeah, like I said on the podcast, it's that time of year, right? We're because look, even if players that you've got an expanded practice squad, and obviously you got bottom end of rosters, and with all that you throw in the COVID stuff. I haven't looked at their COVID situation with Jaguars to see if they've lost anybody that way. I haven't looked at their injury situation there, but it's not uncommon for players, a couple years in the league that obviously that were drafted in some way, shape, or form. If they get put on waivers and it looks to be a situation where the player's healthy and not a misfit or anything like those, like that that a lot of times, not all the time, obviously, but it's not uncommon, especially when you're talking about linemen too. Everybody needs linemen this time of year. So I would expect him to end the season on the Jaguars roster, obviously, with it being week 17, and then remaining with them throughout the summer.
Yeah, he's going to get a futures contract for sure. And that is a question that Frat Boy Fishing had. Was Derwin Gray supposed to be a cut and sign the practice squad type of deal? Yeah, I think the intent was for him to circle back, but obviously the waiver process had to be played out. Steelers have zero control over that. I understand, why they didn't release J.C. Hassenauer, so I'm not mad about that. You had to have a backup center, but I think he could have found somebody else to cut. I would have cut Jay Elliott, the outside linebacker, with Cassius Marsh being up and available, but just unfortunate news there for Pittsburgh. All right, getting back to the questions here. We start things off from Frat Boy Fishing, who had a question about an hour and 20 minutes ago. It says, hey, Alex, what are the chances that Tomlin rests key starters next week. A little nervous decision. Seems like a no-brainer, but Tomlin has at times done the opposite when a decision is a no-brainer. I fully expect, and we'll hear from Tomlin tomorrow, but I fully expect some key players to not play against the Browns. That includes Pouncey, Ben. Those are the top two. I don't think Hayward should play. Watt, you probably sit or limit to a pretty significant degree. Maybe Minka, we'll see, but I don't think you're going to see this team approach this with an incredible seriousness of playing all their guys like normal.
Man, there's you know how bad it would be if one of those key guys were for somehow like. And look, I understand you can't live in your fears, yada yada. But if you don't need to take the risk, why take the risk? And obviously, look, you still have to dress 40 something guys in this thing, and you got to have enough, you got to have enough linemen and all like that. So some people are going to have to play now, and some people that do play might come out of the game early, but they'll obviously have to stay in uniform in case they have to go back in there. But Cameron Hayward, I would definitely sit. T.J. Watt, personally, I would sit. Ben, obviously. Pouncey, obviously. Man, if you get the Castro out of there, that would be nice, just because he hasn't looked totally healthy at times this year. That's 5 right there. You can't sit an inside linebacker even if you wanted to.
No, you can't.
Minka, Hayden, you could probably sit a couple of DBs, in this one, Hayden and Minka, and let put Minka in uniform maybe, or at least lather him up, let him play a couple of series or so, and then maybe get him out of there. But yeah, there's just not all that much to gain in there. Even if the Bills were to somehow lose to the Patriots tonight, what are you really playing for? It's not like crap. You have fans that to help you out or anything like that. So I would just go ahead and punt in Week 17.
Yeah, it's as much about rest as it is risk to me. I mean, obviously you don't want guys to get hurt, but this team just needs a break. I mean, they've talked about that repeatedly during this losing streak about how tired they've been the week 4 bye. Everyone knows the story there. So just about giving those guys some sort of time off that's needed. Again, you can't give everybody. I know the last style bender says Hayden and Nelson can sit. You can probably sit 1. I don't know if you can sit 2, because then you start running out of guys. I mean, maybe promote somebody or something, but where you have some positions of depth, I mean, you can definitely try to take advantage of that, and plus give some young guys some playing time that's going to be useful for a Justin Lane or a James Pierre or whoever it might be, Antoine Brooks, for example.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the goal in this thing ought to be able to get Mason Rudolph as many snaps as possible. Obviously, what are you going to do? Be nice to get some sort of snaps for Anthony McFarland.
You should be able to do that.
In this one as well too. So, I'm not sure Mike Tomlin's going to totally tell us who he plans on sitting. But I would expect him at some point during his press conference to say, yeah, a few guys probably aren't going to play, and he probably won't get deep into specifics on that.
Jesse Hernandez, 2 questions. If Spillane makes it back for wildcard weekend, do you see Marcus Allen getting any snaps at all, even maybe dime snaps? Watching those running backs sneak out of the backfield was frightening. Good question. I think I would still play Allen in dime packages, and I think he was, even whenever Spillane comes back. Again, we'll have to see his health situation. Obviously, he did not play versus the Colts. I think he'd get back in 2 weeks from now, but we don't know that for sure. But yeah, I think if Allen is available, if you can play him in dime and your communication is still sound and you're comfortable in that, then you play Allen in dime, because you're right. You want some more speed on the perimeter. He also asked, would you consider activating Dobbs and using him in a similar role as Brissett for maybe 2nd and 1 and 3rd and 1s? I don't think you can dedicate your quarterback spot solely because of that. So I understand the question there, but with how infrequent that would be, one play maybe in a month, I don't think you can, give Dobbs the hat just for that reason alone. Mike Adesso says, hi guys, can you imagine being Eddie Faulkner at NC State and actually giving the ball to Samuels over Nyheim Hines? I sure would like Hines in this offense. Me too, Mike. I mean, Hines is what Samuels was supposed to be. Hines drafted around earlier than Samuels, and I think this team needs to find a receiving back in the draft in 2021.
And, I went through with Jalen Samuels after he was drafted, and I contextualized damn near all of his runs that he had, I think, over 4 years. And there wasn't a lot of times, he was used minimum as a running back. He's a jack of all trades, at all. And I still get a kick out of him being labeled as a tight end. because you can stand in the garage. It doesn't make you a car. He would line up in kind of that H-back tight end position off the line. Never did he really have his hand in the dirt like a traditional tight end, though. But they would look, they ran Wildcat with him. And unfortunately, we've gotten to see that with him as a member of the Steelers. They would flex him out wide, and he did catch quite a few balls at NC State and all like that. But as we talked about, I mean, too many times about just not being a pass protector and really not a true running back per se. Yeah, he had the good game against the Patriots a couple years ago, but when you and maybe a couple of nice plays against the Panthers, was it a couple years ago, a couple seasons ago?
Yeah, his first touchdown was in that blowout win over the Panthers.
Right, against the Panthers. But outside of that, I mean, I remember him more for drop balls than I do anything else, and miss blocking assignments and all right now. So, yeah, I mean, he gives you some. He must have maybe some pictures on Danny Smith or something. I don't know, because he's you get some special team snaps out there, and he obviously is getting a helmet right now. But from where I sit right now, I will be shocked if Jaylen Samuels will be on the 2000. Something's gone horribly wrong if Jaylen Samuels is on the 2021 53-man roster, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, they kept 4 backs this year. If they keep 4 again next year,
I still say something's gone horribly wrong if he makes the cut of 4.
Yeah, I just want more speed at the position. I know McFarland obviously offers that, but give me someone else too. Maybe someone that has more of a receiving background, like a Hines or something like that, because that's not been McFarland's skill set. Although I don't think McFarland has bad hands. I mean, he can probably be taught and improve there. But yeah, they got the big body and Snell. Give me some more speed. Give me some more juice at the running back position.
And the other thing, real quick about and I understand people being down on McFarland, okay? But how many times have we heard Kevin Colbert talk time and time again about these underclassmen and their rookie seasons are technically their senior years of college, and this kid even came out younger. He's a sophomore, right?
Right, redshirt sophomore, and he was hurt his sophomore year at Maryland. He had that ankle injury that he had to try to play through.
Right. So this kid is green as green can be. Now, does that mean he's going to amount to anything? I think it's too early to tell. But in the same breath, this isn't Chris Rainey or Dre Archer that we're talking about here. So, I mean, just hold him in the bathwater right now. Don't do anything else, with him, because it's way too early to make any kind of broad sweep decisions or because we just haven't seen him yet. He needs more snaps, and he's obviously not going to get them this year. So just press the whole button on him. Don't go out there and say, oh, they need to cut him and he's already a bust. He might not amount to anything, but we just need to see more of him.
Too early to tell. Highway to 7 with a super chat, $5. Thank you so much. Again, if you want to have your question be guaranteed to be asked and answered, send us a super chat. He says, been listening all season. Great insights. Thank you very much. Question, who would you rather play opening round? Browns, Ravens, or Colts? I think Colts will be in over Dolphins. I think ideally you'd play the Dolphins, but given the 3 choices, Browns, Ravens, or Colts, I don't spend much time thinking about it. To be honest with you, I would probably go over those 3. I would say the Browns. I don't want to play the Ravens. As much success as this team has had against Lamar Jackson, I do not want to play the Ravens a third time.
If I had my druthers, I'd pick the Dolphins.
Right. Now he's saying Browns, Ravens, or Colts. So
okay,
if the Dolphins
Browns,
are removed
Ravens,
from
or
that.
Colts. It would be the Browns. I would be my first choice. I don't know. I didn't think they matched up too terribly bad against the Colts. You got to get off to a faster start, obviously, against them. But yeah, I mean, look, Lamar Jackson scares the living hell out of me. I'm not afraid to say it. I don't think he's a long-term solution for them. I still don't. But it doesn't mean that I don't respect his ability to extend plays with his feet and go. Not only can he go 20 yards on you, he can go 220 yards on you in a heartbeat. And those two teams just know each other all too well. And the Ravens' ability to run the football and play keep away at times, and especially late in the season against them, the Steelers haven't had a lot of success. You can't, it would be a good game, I think, but I would much rather take my chances and play the Browns. But obviously, we don't get to make that decision.
Right. So we shall see. I have a feeling they're going to face Baltimore there in the wild card weekend, but we'll see what happens next couple of weeks to set that.
Who should be favored if that's obviously in Pittsburgh? Should the Steelers be underdogs there, or is that a pick 'em?
I imagine they'll be like 1.5 to 2 point favorites, mainly because it's at home. But just that run defense has struggled. It's suffered with the losses and the injuries, even getting Spillane back. I mean, Baltimore has run this ball, down Pittsburgh's throat, even when they've been healthy and played well overall. It's just hard to. If you can't stop the run in the playoffs, it's hard to win. And I think I just don't want to see that again because Baltimore's going to go for $150 plus, and that's going to put them in a good position to win. All right, Suleiman Jelani says, is there a chance the Steelers offense plays a quarter or half to keep the rhythm going on offense? I think Dave and I kind of talked about some of the guys who probably won't play. Again, it's not like the fourth preseason game where you can sit everybody. You still have a 90-man roster. I mean, you're going to have to still play a decent amount of your starters and most of your offensive line, probably everybody but Pouncey. Maybe you sit DeCastro, as you mentioned, Dave. But you're going to have to play most of your guys, because you only have so many roster spots available to work with.
Yeah, look, I mean, at most you can have 55 on the active, and then 48 on the game day active. So I mean, you can only have 7. Well, what is it? It would make 7 inactives in total, right?
Right.
And so you still going to have. Now, do you have to play all 55? All 48 that you dress? No, but I mean, when you cycle through your special teams and all like that, I mean, you're still going to have to play a good 40, 42 players, I would think.
Right, and if you have a couple of injuries, then those guys are in active spots right there. So, I mean, again, it's just, one of those things where you just can't sit everybody. You try to sit Ben, Pouncey, that's where I start. I'm sitting Hayward because he's played a ton this year. Watt, you probably sit. I want to be selfish and get him a half sack this year, get him to 16 sacks. But obviously, the season and winning matters a whole lot more. But so that's where you start with your key guys, and you kind of go from there. Jack Powell says,
I tell you what, I have Wormley and Carlos Davis and a few of those other backups there. I want them to sleep well after that game on Sunday.
They finally showed more of a defensive line rotation. They had, I think, combined 26 snaps or whatever the number was, like 26% of the snaps went to backup defensive linemen, which was good to see after those numbers was really shrinking to like 5 and 10% the weeks before. So a better D-line rotation, I think, is helpful. And one reason why you saw this defense rise to the occasion in the second half as opposed to struggling like they did against the Bengals and Washington and Buffalo, where they felt like a really tired unit in the second half. Jack Powell says Claypool deserves a ton of credit for his blocking on the final offensive drive. Juju got stood up, but Claypool erased his man on both blocks. I'll have to go back and check that, Jack. But yeah, I think some of the perimeter blocking in the Bengals game, also against the Colts, was probably better. And Claypool certainly one reason they talked about, the Senior Bowl at some of those blocking 101 drills. They were really impressed with Claypool's kind of tenacity. Obviously, he has the size and frame to do that. And so that's a bonus, but it is a benefit of having a 6'4", 230-pound receiver. All right, going through some more questions here. John Pennington, Dave and Alex, what changes do you think the Steelers should make in the upcoming offseason, both players and coaches who need to be replaced? I mean, they're going to be losing a lot of guys, not by choice, but just by the financial aspect of it with all the free agents they have. In terms of coaching staff, I'm not there yet. We'll see how the season plays out, so I haven't really thought about coaches who may or may not be replaced right now. But, I don't really have a great answer for you right now on that, John. I'm going to butcher the name here. I apologize. Yarin E. I'm just going to say Yarin E. Ben called a play at the second half. He also played at the same time. So do you think that this is how the Steelers offense should take things? There's been some different reporting about, how much was, and I'd like to do the whole drawn up kind of thing, but apparently Juju was talking about. Did you see that report? I'm trying to frame this correctly, Dave, about Juju talking about the second half offense and Ben was using stuff they really didn't practice that much and kind of using that for the second half spark.
It's a secondhand report though, so
right, wasn't yeah.
I mean, it's a verbal report, so unless we got we don't have the full context here. It's hard to base anything off of. Then you have Ebron saying that we practiced the plays,
right?
So,
exactly.
I don't know, twist it whatever you want to fit your narrative. If you want to fire Randy Fichtner, then go ahead and say that Ben called all the plays in the second half. If you don't, then you take the others. So, I mean, how are we supposed to answer this question when we don't have the context? We have the full Zoom from Eric Ebron today, so we
Hmm.
can tell you the context that he used. We don't have the full interview from Michael Silver with Juju, so I mean, I don't know what how we're supposed to answer the question.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, there was some different reporting on that. I think some of it gets overplayed, though, just in the way the whole, Ben drawing up plays in the dirt from mid-season got probably overblown. Even Ben was like, okay, too much of a story being made out of that. That's kind of how these things tend to go.
If you want to draw it up from a successful play standpoint in the second half, and if you were to assume, if you want to assume that Ben called 95% of the plays, then you could go ahead and say just really fire everybody on the offensive staff.
That's
Really,
true.
just
Yeah.
let Ben run things. If that's the way you want to kind of go with the narrative, because they had a very super high. I think they had only nine unsuccessful plays in the second half. In total, I think 4 or 5 of those were incompletions, and then the others were runs. And I did not include kneel downs
Right.
in that. I excluded kneel downs. So it was an extremely high success play rate, not just runs but passes in the second half of that game, and was really the difference.
For sure.
Obviously the difference in the game.
Absolutely. Highway to 7, another super chat, $2. Do you rest players Sunday if Buffalo loses tonight? Regardless of what Buffalo does or does not do tonight, I rest key players against the Browns, because even if Buffalo wins or loses, either way you're playing for the 2 versus 3 seed. That doesn't matter enough to me to play Ben and Hayward, etc. in the finale.
Yeah, if we were talking a difference in maybe the 1 seed here
Sure.
and a bye, or if we're, I don't know, even if you're talking maybe about having fans in the stands and maybe making maybe I could have my arm twisted a little bit more to potentially go for the number 2 seed if for some reason that comes into play starting tonight or whatnot. But now, and you and I talked about this on a podcast earlier this morning. This team's got to be just whooped right now, just mentally, physically. It'd be so nice just to give these guys a kind of even though it's not a bye week, as close as one manufactured one as you can get to them. Look, there's already going to be a lot of them are going to have to deal with questions in the media this week about why they started slow, who's calling the plays, who needs to be fired, that kind of stuff. What did Juju dance on this week? That kind of stuff. I would just give as many. There's just, in my opinion, not enough to gain for these as a team, that just try to rest as many players as you can.
Absolutely. James Naylor says, hi, Dave and Alex, and everyone else. Happy Victory Monday. Happy Victory Monday to you as well, James. The last Stylebender says, do you think Spillane will be back for playoffs? I do. He's windowed open. His window to return opens up starting this week, so he could play against the Browns if he's healthy enough. Mike Adesso says, are you at all concerned with the maskless Steelers social media posts from Juju to the linemen? Seems really, really dumb for them to post these. That can't happen. Dave, I know you wrote about that this morning, wondering if this team could be fined for what I would assume is a breach in protocol.
We'll see, right? I mean, you go back and you look at what happened to the Saints earlier in the season there, and wasn't that on the heels of them already having some sort of infraction, if you will? And then, look, the Steelers had that they got their hands slapped pretty hard after that game, I think against the Ravens earlier in the season there. Do I think it's overblown? Absolutely. Do I think it's silly that we have to write and talk about the team possibly getting fined for celebrating in a locker room without mask on after they just played a football game? Yeah, I think it's silly, but rules are rules, right? Now, I don't think we've heard the outcome of the Saints. I think they are what's the word I'm looking for? They challenged that appealed it. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. And I don't think we've heard the outcome of that just yet. But if you find them, don't you almost have to find the Steelers in this situation?
Yeah, you probably do, just given how strict.
Do you have to take the draft pick away?
I would hope not. I think that's.
I would hope not either. I think that's a little bit over the top.
I mean, the Ravens didn't even lose a draft pick.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 200 something. we knew how that was going to
I
go.
thought they would get a higher fine than that, or a higher penalty. That's light.
I put on Twitter it was going to be a lot along the lines of the Titans,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it ended up coming in at. What I'd like to see them probably do is say, look, we're not going to take the Saints draft pick. We're not going to take a Steelers draft pick, but here's another fine, and be done with it that way.
Right. That's probably what's going to happen. Saloon Arago says, great work, guys. Thank you. How would you rate this year's draft class? Who was the biggest disappointment? Any chance Ben can win comeback player of the year over Alex Smith? I think Ben deserves it. I think both deserve it, but I think Alex Smith has the more sentimental value to it and obviously had a tougher road to come back from, although Ben's injury, of course, was serious. I think Alex Smith probably gets it, but I'll be kind of frustrated by that. About the draft class, I think the draft class has been impressive for rookies coming in, no offseason program, pandemic, all the extra obstacles of that on top of just being a rookie, which is already a challenge to do for Claypool, Highsmith, Dotson, and guys like that to step up, even some Carlos Davis, McFarland here and there, has all been really impressive. Biggest disappointment, I don't classify any rookies as disappointments. They're rookies, again, given the context of the year, and I think that most have played well. McFarland, of course, has been quieter, but as Dave just mentioned, he was a redshirt sophomore coming out, the lone underclassman of this group, and so it's reasonable to expect he's got a longer and steeper learning curve than, say, a Chase Claypool or a Kevin Dotson, who started 50 games at Louisiana. So I'm not sweating it too much right now.
Well, I think it's easy to predict who's going to win the Joe Green Award, right?
Going to say it's Chase Claypool.
I think it's Chase Claypool as well, too. I think that's a no-brainer. However, Alex Highsmith has put some nice things on tape this last couple weeks. It's not going to be enough for him to be the Steelers Rookie of the Year or anything like that. But he's got some nice tape in the limited stuff. I haven't gone through fine-tooth comb on the offensive line from Sunday against the Colts, but the initial feel is that Kevin Dotson had a good game. Obviously you just wish, he just hadn't played a lot of snaps and obviously missed the last game, and was on the COVID list, I think, for a little while as well, too, there. So, a lot of these guys got incompletes. I mean, Antoine Brooks Jr., who knows? He could be in uniform, maybe see a snap or two against the Browns, right?
Sure.
And we should see a lot more Carlos Davis against the Browns as well, too. Not that it's going to be quality snaps to kind of judge when you have most of your second string defense in there. But I always look at it this way, man. Your top two or top three draft picks, obviously your top one you better hit on. You better hit on at least one of your next two. And I think the Steelers potentially have done that in Alex Highsmith. The rest of them, can you get Chase Claypool to a second contract? Well, the Steelers don't have a long history of doing that with any wide receiver, really. Can you get Alex Highsmith potentially to a second contract? I like the chances. I mean, it's way too early to tell right now, but just on the surface right now, I mean, I think they did okay. Kevin Dotson has the makings of being a 10-year starter in the NFL. We'll see about that. And, anything else you get above that is kind of gravy, in my opinion.
It's a far cry from the days where Patrick Bailey won the Joe Green Award in 2008. I think that was. Yeah, definitely a lot of candidates this year. Skipped over this question. Want to go back to it. Andresa says, hey, which team would be better off in a classic Kansas snowstorm, Steelers or the Chiefs? Just want to know who to root for. I think the Chiefs are better equipped because they're playing at home, and you want to try to match speed in a snowstorm. Good luck catching Tyreek Hill on dry ground as opposed to in the snow and trying to change direction. So I think the Chiefs would still.
I don't know. Can you bring tire chains?
Yeah, right. Winter tires. The Chiefs are gonna have the advantage.
I'm not using no tire chains on no tires.
What do you know about tire chains? You're in Florida and Vegas. You never had to worry about.
Well, we just they're not necessarily tire chains where I'm from, but someone was always getting broken down somewhere, so the chains were always used to pull people out of mud pits or whatever. No, we didn't use them for any snow, obviously, or anything like that. There would be some rumbles that chains got used on, not naming any names.
Okay. All right, Findle70 with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thoughts about the Castros' decline, especially in run game. Labs has mentioned recently about an injury. Ben gets the is he done talk, but not him. Thoughts? Yeah, Dave and I have talked about this before. I mean, certainly I don't think the Castros ever been healthy this year. Started the year with those nagging multiple injuries, missed some time. Dotson had to fill in and probably never got 100% right from there. Would not be surprised if the Castro was one of those cleanup scope surgery guys after the season ends. I'm not saying the Castro's done though. I know he's not played great this year, but I would be willing to bet there's an injury that's impacting him to some degree.
I won't be surprised if something from his belly button down needs work on during the off season.
Yeah, I think he's got a. What did he have? He had a knee. He had something else. He had a couple
What, an
things
abdomen
or
or
was it? Yeah, is it a core
abdomen
muscle
or something like
kind of
that?
thing?
I wouldn't be surprised if he got maybe some sort of core muscle
Hernia
strain
thing, yeah.
or something like. I don't know. I won't be surprised. I'll tell you that. We'll see.
Yeah, same here. Let me go back up through the questions here. Again, Dave and I here for another half hour answering any and all of your Steelers questions, at least as many as we can. Garrett Slingerland says, I know this probably will require the All-22 to answer, but was that a Steelers win or a Colts loss? I'll take it either way, but I'm curious about your take on it. I think it was a Steelers win. I think they forced the turnovers. They created the big plays. They pushed the ball downfield, and they made the stops when they had to. So obviously the Colts, I'm sure, is talking about what they did wrong, and probably mad about the refs or whatever the case is, but I think Pittsburgh just legitimately played a lot better in the second half.
Well, you can't turn the football over, right?
Yeah, and they didn't. They were +2 in turnover differential, and that was huge in this one.
What was the explosive play? Did you see the list of adjusted net yards by game that I put up for Philip Rivers so far this season? I just put it up there.
No,
It's
if you just
his
put it up, I wouldn't have seen it.
third lowest adjusted net yards per passing attempt number at 5.33 or 5.34. The other two lowest ones I think were against the Ravens and the Browns. So he has had his
AFC
problems
North.
against the AFC North this year. And what was I tell you? I was going to look at explosive plays real quick here. The good old Tox stat. Turnovers and explosive plays. The Steelers had 4 explosive plays. However, what do we talk about this morning on the podcast and those defensive pass interference penalties? I really think those have got to be counted as explosive plays. So that's 4 and 2 makes 6. The Colts had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Add in the Steelers 2 turnovers, that's 8-5. The Steelers won the Tox battle.
Nice.
And normally, if you win the Tox battle by 2 or more, you're going to win the game 80% of the time. So the numbers work out over history there. So that's kind of what I guess you can boil the game down to. And boy, was it so good to see the Steelers put up some passing explosive plays.
Absolutely. Long overdue, and they're going to need more of that going forward, especially assuming that run game is never going to come back to life this year. Mike Adesso, how awesome would it be for Mason to play well and knock the Browns out of the playoffs? It would be pretty cool. Just for Mason to play well.
Remember Landry Jones a couple years ago had that walk-off, didn't he? Do you remember who it was to? Real quick.
Oh, God.
Who's that touchdown to?
Kobe Hamilton?
Ding, 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 ding.
Was it?
Yeah.
I was not 100% confident in that one. Okay, good. Remember when Landry Jones played like a series and then got hurt and then Ben came in and finished the game?
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't happen. Kobe Hamilton, is he still in football? I don't think so.
I don't think he is.
I think he fell out of the league. I don't know if he ended up on some practice squad because of the expansion and rules. That was remember in the AFC title game, it was like Kobe Hamilton and Sammy Coates and those guys trying to go to the Super Bowl. Ugh. I watched that game in an airport. It was just a disaster for many, many reasons. All right, back to the questions here. How annoyed are you that the Jags signed Gray with only 1 game to go and nothing to play for from Kyle Smith? I'm bummed about it. I don't blame the Jags, obviously. I mean, loading up their offseason roster, don't blame them one bit. But yeah, it does suck, especially for an offensive line that's going to probably lose Villanueva and Filer and Pouncey DeCastro getting older. Just you want to have as many, depth project guys along the offensive line as possible. As Dave said, offensive line talent is scarce in today's NFL. It's scarce in college. So if you can find those guys, hold on to them, the better off you'll be. The last style bender, how much did you guys like the O-line manhandling the Colts front seven a majority of the game yesterday? Forrest and Houston were non-existent. I agree. In pass protection, they combined for no quarterback hits, no sacks, very few pressures. Run game, different story. But yeah, I thought controlling the line of scrimmage, really, as you said, Houston and Buckner and Autry and all those guys, very quiet as pass rushers. The only sack came off a blitz, which is rare for the Colts to do. Kari Willis came flying in, free off play action and drop in. But overall, I was happy with that for sure. Couple super chats coming in here. Chad Weiss, $10. Happy holidays. Thank you, Chad. Happy holidays to you and yours as well. Appreciative of the super chat. And Live Loyal with a $5 super chat says, Dave, how is our current ANYA looking, and is it good enough to compete in the playoffs? And where can we look up that stat for all teams? I don't know where that number sits post-Colts game, but I know it is good enough to compete in the playoffs.
If you go to Pro Football Reference, pro-football-reference.com, and you click on seasons up if you click on, if you hover over seasons and you click the 2020 NFL, it'll take you to the offensive page. If you scroll down there to passing offense, you will see the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number next to each team there, and you can sort it however you want. Now, the Steelers number after 15 games right now is 6.2. It's over 6, which is good. Obviously, the higher the number, the more better. You'd like to see that thing realistically 6.7 or higher. It's okay to have it around 6, just slightly over 6 if you had a running game, but you don't. Now, we see how Jekyll and Hyde this offense is. I think the big news here is just looking at if you want a good reason to think that the Steelers can potentially compete, at least win a game maybe in the playoffs, it would be because of their defense there. And if you look at their adjusted number right now, 4.6. And I think by percentage points, they are the best in the league, better than the Rams. The Rams also have 4.6. I think if you run those decimal places out a little bit, the Steelers are slightly better. But 4.6 adjusted net yards per passing attempt number in today's NFL, I mean, that's strong, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is strong. That's getting after the quarterback. That's getting some sacks. That's getting a few interceptions in there as well. Not giving up very, very many touchdown passes. Now, you could say that, man, it just doesn't feel like this defense has been past defense has been all that great. We get it. I get it. I mean, look at the third down and longs that they've had complete. They had one yesterday, didn't they? 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 12 or something like that converted against them. And then obviously they haven't been as strong against the run as I think we would have hoped they would have been this year. And especially in that first half against the Colts, it seemed like they got dragged all over the place by Jonathan Taylor in that first half. But long story short, or long answer short, they have a defense that is worthy enough to make a Super Bowl run. The only question now at this point is, what can the offense do? And Alex and I talked this morning, and it's going to go as far as Ben takes them with his arm and ability to push the football down the field. If they cannot get explosive plays deep down the field in the playoffs, they're not going to go very far. If they can, then they have maybe a shot at making a run. At the very least, maybe meeting Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. But let's just get them through the wild card round first.
It's a good way to frame it. A couple of quick hitters here. Mitch Hull says, first time cashing this live. Just wanted to say y'all have been awesome, y'all have been releasing awesome content all season. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Mitch. Glad you could be here. 102 people in the chat, so thank you guys for showing up here. I know we were off last Monday. Be sure to like the stream if you have not already. Brings more people to the chat. Speaking of chats, we have a super chat here from Joe Henry, $5. Thank you very much. Were you cursing that back judge like I was when he cut off Hilton's path to the end zone? I thought for sure the offense was going to stall there. Yeah, as soon as Mike Hilton picked it up, started running, I said, please get in the end zone because I do not trust this offense to punch it in if Hilton does not score. And that almost happened. Thank goodness Connor kind of squirmed his way over the goal line on 3rd and goal for the 1-yard touchdown. But Hilton collided with that back judge, and Jonathan Taylor can scoot. I mean, a big dude. He caught Mike Hilton pretty quickly there too. So Jonathan Taylor's going to be a good player in the NFL.
Real quick, while it's on top of my mind,
Hmm.
Steven Nelson had a little couple two tweet rant about the officiating in that game against the Colts. What do you think about that pass interference call on him?
I'm not as mad as he was about it. They were calling that game pretty tight with the PIs. I'm sure Colts fans are upset about some of the calls that went against them. So I just kind of saw it as how the refs were calling the game. They weren't allowing a whole lot to get away with for DB. So I get why he's upset, but I'm not as upset as he is. I'll show up the tweets right now. What was the comment here? What did he say here? Glad we won, but them refs got to get new jobs after today. Stole my pick for what? A free sandwich? What is the sandwich reference?
I don't know.
Is there something that I'm not aware of? Some sort of joke or meme that I don't know about? But yeah, Nelson was not happy. Dusk Thunder 9, do you think TJ Watt is the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year? I would say so. I think you laid out the numbers this morning, Dave, in a tweet that showed that pretty good. Leader in sacks, and he's probably going to remain there even if he doesn't play next week. He's 1.5 up on Aaron Donald right now.
I think he's got a good shot. I mean, I just think if you look at I don't think you can fault him if he's rested by his team. But
right.
we'll see. I mean, the Rams obviously have something to play for, right? And so I think Aaron Donald's obviously going to have to play for them. I think he's done enough. I really do.
Where was the one I just saw? I just lost where it's at here. I was going to ask you. I was going to actually ask you, Dave. Do you know how many Steelers in franchise history has led the league in sacks? How many times it's happened, or who did it, or who's done it?
Oh,
so I'll give you a hint. It's only one. As far as at least since sacks became official in '82, only one Steelers ever led the league in sacks. Not even James Harrison when he's 16 sacks.
Well, he leads the league. That's what Watt is in
right.
a sack and a half away from James Harrison's franchise record as far as Steelers leading the league.
Right. Well, only one Steeler has ever led the league in sacks since it became official in '82. Any guesses?
It's not. Is it? It can't be Kevin Greene, is it?
It is. It is.
Is it?
And unfortunately, the late Kevin Greene, 14 sacks in '94, led the NFL.
Wow.
He might have been tied. I don't know, but he definitely at least had a share of the lead.
What was it? 1994.
94, I believe. He had 14, and that led the NFL. Yeah, Harrison 16. Harrison was fourth in sacks in 2008 with 16, which is crazy to think about. There were three guys ahead of him. I forget who was ahead of him, but there were three players. All right, Woke Kafefi says, do you know Fichtner is using the Ask Madden option when he calls plays? A $5 super chat. I understand, yeah. Fichtner is not my favorite OC. I think some of the stuff he gets, some of the guff he gets is not always deserved, and it certainly can be a little convenient when things are bad. It's his fault. When things are good, it's Ben's credit. That works out a little too cleanly in Ben's favor, it feels like every single time. But he's going to be the OC as long as Ben is the quarterback. That's been my stance for a long time now.
It looks like they got just Kevin Greene listed alone here.
Okay.
In 1994, I would think that if somebody tied him, they would have the two names listed there.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't know that for sure. I just saw that they'd given him the league lead status, and so I hadn't gone back and checked to see who was second or if he was tied by any chance. So yeah, Kevin Greene, only one.
He did that at the age of 32 as well.
My goodness, yeah, really crazy. Now, maybe Joe Green did it once in the 70s. I don't know, but stats were not officially tracked as an individual. They were as a team, but not as individuals. So since the stat became official in 1982, Kevin Greene only the one to do it. Hopefully TJ Watt joins him after next week.
Can you imagine having the internet and the stats like this when I way back when the Earth was cooling when I was a kid?
How did you guys manage? I mean, you didn't have any of this information.
Football cards, man. It was on the back of football cards. Baseball cards. And then obviously you go out and get the morning paper every day and read the sports section and memorize the baseball box scores and peruse the football box score. Now, obviously, as I got older, then it became where it was like the USA Today was the Bible. You made sure you always got the Friday USA Today. Playing fantasy and all like that. But by the time the age of the internet teaches us now, but by the time that stuff hit the newspaper, a lot of those blurbs, it was extremely old news
Hmm.
and outdated. And also, the magazines every year. By the time you got the magazines every year, the draft magazines and stuff like that, oh man, it is so outdated. I just couldn't imagine being a kid, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, around in there, and just having all this information, right there at the tip of your fingertips. Because Lord knows, back in the day, we didn't have anything like that.
Mark Leslie with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. We're going to win it all. Put all your money on it. Alex was never in doubt. Number 7. Here we go. Mark's been driving that train for a while. It's been a little quiet the last 3 weeks, so I'm glad to see that you're back and you never hopped off, Mark. Hopefully, I'll join you come playoff time. Had a question here from Carson Haygood, who asked it a couple times, so let me go ahead and get to it right now. Game on the line, hypothetical situation, AFC Championship game in Kansas City, down 4, 2 minutes left. Who are your 5 personnel you would try to win the game with? Would Connor be out there? Claypool, Washington? I would run it probably pretty standard 11 personnel. Ebron at tight end, Connor at running back. Some of that's for protection stuff. And then I would have Juju, Deontay, and I think I would go Claypool in that situation. Maybe a rotation of some sort if I get a timeout or something. But those are my 3 receivers: Deontay, Juju in the slot, Claypool at the Z.
Yeah, I can't find any fault with that. Look, James Conner can protect. If there's one thing he can do, it's that. And we saw if given some space, he can still catch the football out of the backfield and get up the field that way with it there. And he can still punch it in from the 1 yard line. So uh, obviously, I wouldn't be running a lot with Ebron.
Well, 2 minutes left, down 4. I don't think you're running at
Right,
all, no matter
right.
what's
Oh, I
coming.
didn't hear the time
Yeah.
constraints there. Okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah. It would be the same that you chose there.
Let's see. Spencer Bishop asks, Bud, is he coming back? I highly, highly doubt it, Spencer. Volume turn.
I understand people say, look, oh, his value is going to be diminished and all like that. Okay, I get that. Okay, and he's probably not going to be healthy until long, at least after the bulk of the free agency signing period is done as well too. But here's the thing: why on earth would he lock himself up in any sort of long-term deal way below market value? If he does anything well below market value, I'm going to throw out, like, let's say, just because of his injury, 15. No way does he sign a deal, I wouldn't think, for a multi-year deal for less than $15.5 million. I think he'd be really potentially selling himself short in that situation there. So let's assume that that best he can do is a 1 year deal. Well, the Steelers are going to want to try to sign him to a 2 year deal because of the cap restraints. The Steelers are not going to be able to and even so, if he took a 1 year deal, what's the minimum that he would put on the value of himself? $7-8 million.
Yeah, I was thinking around 6 as a minimum.
I mean, and that's low, man. I mean, that's low. I mean, to me, I think he'd be selling himself short on that.
Mm-hmm.
Even at 6 or 7 million, the Steelers would be tough to afford him on a 1 year deal. And what does that say about your faith in Alex Highsmith at that point, too? I mean, obviously, you ought to be able to make a fair assessment of what you have or don't have in Alex Highsmith right now. You got a draft pick in him. This team builds through the draft. Highsmith's going to be their guy. I just can't, unless they're totally unsatisfied with Alex Highsmith. Come free agency time or after the season ends, at no way, shape, or form do they go out there and spend $6, $7, $8, $9 million on a 1 year deal for Bud Dupree. I just can't see it. If you had the cap space, that's one thing, but they don't have the cap space.
Exactly, and that's what ultimately matters. Either his value won't be hurt that badly, and he'll be way too expensive for Pittsburgh overall, or his value will be impacted significantly, which will cause him to take a 1 year prove it type deal, in which case there is no way to spread that money out like you can on a multi-year deal, and Pittsburgh won't be able to afford that either. So either way, they're not going to be able to afford him coming back.
Kevin Colbert hates those 1 year expensive deals too.
Right.
He would try to sell Bud, say, look, we'll give you, we'll average it out here. We'll give you a signing bonus. That way we can get this first year cap number down so we can cut you after a year. You know?
All right.
I mean, look, I've done this long enough. I follow the cap. It's what I do. It's a passion inside of a passion of mine to do that. And there's just I get people wanting him to come back and at least one more year and all, but the economics of it just say that it's just not going to happen.
Right, right. Greg Aspen, out of all potential wild cards, who would you least like to see play the Steelers? I'm going to go with the Ravens for the reasons we mentioned earlier in the show. Kenny Hayes, does anyone feel like the refs allow Watt to be held a little too much? Yeah, it's got a bit of a James Harrison vibe, but I think we focus on that quite a bit, and sometimes it gets called, sometimes it doesn't. Called less this year. That's across the board. Just the way the refs are enforcing it, or in this case, not enforcing it.
Boy, poor Watt got hogtied, and that hadn't been the only time we missed it, but it was the best shot we've had all year of him being hogtied around the neck on that one. And the bad thing about it is it kind of impacted that drive. It goes from 1st and 10 situation because that was an incomplete pass. It goes to 2nd and 10, whereas if you get the holding call there, it goes to 2nd and 20, and then obviously the odds of them converting and keeping that drive alive go down, next to nil, if you will, because of that holding call. So what happens? That the very next play they convert on a 2nd and 10 pass, I believe, and then they go down and score their second touchdown of the game. So, I mean, yeah, you could probably circle every play and say, well, that one impacted this one, impacted that one, but it was just so blatant that. And normally I don't get upset over penalties or missed calls or enough like that, but that one really got me because of how the drive played out and all.
Right, for sure. Joel Coleman says, "Hi guys, love your work." Thank you, Joel. Which positions do you see the team prioritizing for the draft next year? Congrats on having the mightiest podcast intro too. Thank you. I don't know if I've been called the mightiest podcast before, but I'll take it. What position do I see the team prioritizing in the draft? Partially depends on free agency, who stays, who goes. I think offensive tackle, tight end, those are two of the top areas that I think this team will look to address. Hope to address, at least.
Yeah, I think tight end's going to be in there for sure. I know everybody's thinking that they're going to take a quarterback, but I'll believe it when I see it. I'm sorry. I think at some point past the first round, you have to consider a running back past the first round. I think who's your backup center, Alex?
Don't really have one. I mean, Hassenauer.
Maybe you need to explore a 3rd or 4th round pick to see if you can get something there at the center position. You're probably going to need an inside linebacker body down in there somewhere in one of those picks. And
slot corner, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a slot corner. They'd like to draft at least one wide receiver every year somewhere. You have to think that that's going to still be in play here as well too. So both sides, the defense is going to get gutted pretty good. I got a feeling. So I think they could use all 6 or 7 or 8 picks, or whatever they end up with here in total.
Hope they get some good comp picks. Johan Hernandez, if Fichtner is let go, who are some names that interest you to replace him? Who do you think could pair well with Matt Canada? If hypothetical that Fichtner's gone, I think Canada just gets promoted as OC. I mean, you're going to stay in-house as much as possible instead of some outsider guy with his whole completely new system and scheme in Ben's final year or two in the NFL. So I think if Fichtner was gone, Canada would just be the in-house hire, the same way that Fichtner was the in-house hire when Haley was gone.
Why don't you you could save some money, just fire the entire offensive staff, and just let Ben run it.
Yeah, you could. Pinch those pennies. Tough year for Rooney.
Yeah, I would go ahead and I'd fire everybody just right now and let Ben just run it all.
Ghost Rider Space Ghost. The running game is fine. Interesting comment. The running game is fine. The Steelers are keeping the playbook hidden because they've already clinched. Why the hell would they not be holding back if Steelers can beat KC? That is more optimism for the run game than I've ever had in my entire life. They were bad at running the football long before they clinched a playoff spot. And I promise you, they're not hiding it, waiting for some awesome new revolutionary run scheme to be unleashed in the playoffs. They want to run the football, they can't, and that's unlikely to change.
Anything you get, man. If James Conner comes out in the playoffs and rushes for 130, throw a damn parade, man. Yeah. At this point, at this point, we've seen it all season long. Things like that just don't magically change in a game. So, I mean, is it possible that you have one game where you have an output like that? Yeah, absolutely. Because all it takes is a couple of big runs, right?
Hmm.
And if you get a lead or something, you're wearing down another team. But when's the last time we've seen this Steelers team, the Steelers offense, effectively be the Tennessee Titans, where oh Lord, it's fourth quarter, and here comes Derrick Henry. We're done. We're checking out.
Hmm.
Check please. We just haven't seen that. So uh, the optimism should be that maybe it won't get worse. That's what the optimism should
Mm.
be with the running
They
game.
keep setting the bar lower and lower every single week, though. So we'll see. Johan
Would it
Hine-
kill Ben to try a quarterback sneak every once in a
yeah,
while? I
as bad
mean,
as they are
I
at
know it
third and
only
one.
happens. It's like
Yeah.
like leap year, right? Once
Haley's
every
comment,
7
yeah.
years or something like that, right? I
Right,
mean,
right. I mean, yeah, I hear you. At this point, I'm for anything that gets the ball forward on third and one because they can't do much else right now. I mean, it's funny. Even Tony Romo, the eternal optimist that Romo is, was talking with Nance on the broadcast last night and was like, "Will the Steelers run here?" And I was like, "Nope, they will not run the football. They cannot run the football." Just openly like trolling. He's right. He just
yeah,
even and
yeah.
Romo's usually pretty cheery, but he's like, "They cannot run the football," and they did not run the football. They were going shotgun, third and two, throwing screens and shoot slants to Juju. All right, here, a couple more questions to wrap up today's live stream. Eric McDay, you've talked about this already, but since our run game is non-existent, why not use spread run game like old school Houston Oilers? We did good on Connor, only good run. Yeah, we've talked about kind of the air raid, run and shoot type of stuff. I know you're talking about the Oilers with Warren Moon and those guys. I mean, I'm all for any ideas at this point. I think trying to spread things out, lighten the box, create more one-on-one matchups would be a good idea, but I'm sure there's consequences to that as well.
How about what's wrong with maybe trying to run a little bit of outside zone or something, or more pin and pull, or something like that? I mean, we saw a little bit of that against the we had there's been just minor successes along the way here, enough that makes you go, okay, maybe, and then nothing.
Hmm.
Uh we saw them run power against the Bengals there for a play or two with some success. We saw the pin and pull go to the right, 6 yard runs, man. I mean, I'm jumping up and down in my seat on a 6 yard run here. Uh, do anything at this point. I mean, and like I said, if for some reason they end up getting 130 yards or 150 yards in the playoffs, don't expect it. But if they get it, it's fine. I mean, they're just going to have to run game alternatives, as they like to call them. With some of these quick screen passes. Something that gets you 4 yards on first down. That's all you need is 4 yards on first down at a minimum.
Mark Leslie, do you think we will use this game against the Browns to practice anything and everything possible to get the run game going? I like to think they've already been trying that because they want to get the run game going. So I don't know if you see anything dramatically new. The scheme is the scheme, maybe a different wrinkle here or two, but I would think it just comes down to an execution issue more than it is a giant schematic problem.
I think you just try not to get Mason Rudolph without another helmet cracked upside his skull. I think literally
Yeah.
that's the goal. All right, let's keep Mason upright and keep helmets off of his head.
If he can count to
All,
5 after this game, we've won this
yeah,
game. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, get inside the huddle. No helmet to the head on 3. Ready,
Right.
break. That's I wouldn't expect much to happen this week. If you get it, fine. I mean, don't throw Mason out there with nobody out there in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously they're going to have some people out there, and I mean, do you really expect it? He's got to have his receivers out there, at least most of them anyway, for most of the game. I mean, there's not going to be any way around that. Resting people along those lines that way. So just give them a fighting chance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I shouldn't say fight, but give him a chance.
Oh, Tim Chase, I like his comment here. They hit the run game so well they can't find it. That's a really good comment. And probably our last question here comes from Dusk Thunder 9, also about the Steelers' run game or lack thereof. Is Zach Banner getting hurt early in the season, one of the reasons why the run game is so stagnant this year. I'm sure his presence would help right now, but they ran the ball fine the first 4 games. He got hurt in the first one. They ran for 100-plus yards, average over 4 yards a carry against the Broncos and Eagles, and I think Texans in there as well. So it's not like they couldn't run the football in those moments when Banner first went down. They did. They can't anymore. It's just getting comical at this point, and I do not expect it to get better this season.
You come out and you come out and move the football down the field more than 10 yards down the field in the air first couple of drives. You get them safeties rotating back like we saw Indianapolis do about the 10-minute mark of that fourth quarter there in that game on Sunday. That's probably your best shot at some run success in those situations, or run game alternative successes, which really I think that's a real thing, and we saw them use it, the quick screens over to the left and all like that, count them in the box, and if they're playing too deep, then you either hand it off or you throw the smoke screen over to the side, or a tunnel screen or whatever you want to on that. I'm fine with that, but you got to garner the respect from that secondary and get them to quit playing single high.
Mm-hmm. Chase Monster 10, will they use Chase Claypool ever again? Yes, I'm sure they will. They did not use him much in the first half again on Sunday, but they used him more in the second half. Mark, do we want the Pats to win tonight? Yes, I think so. Buffalo lost. Pats losing does not do anything to help the Steelers in any sort of playoff seeding, so sure, I guess root for the Pats. And then Highway to 7. Did you see anything expanded with our running back screen game on Sunday? Seemed like we were doing some more delayed screens. Yeah, it just felt like it was a little bit more rhythmic. Better blocking in front. I think the Steelers have adjusted to where their tackles stay in now and pass out and try to influence those edge rushers upfield more than they were early in the season, but I have not been able to pinpoint anything specific. Just happy to see this running back screen game have a little bit more success against the Colts. All right, Dave, it is 8 o'clock. That's going to wrap up today's stream. Thank you so much for being here, everybody, all the people that send in super chats and watch the stream and like the stream. Definitely appreciate it. Dave and I will return next Monday in 2021 for the live stream after the conclusion of the 2020 regular season. We'll see who Pittsburgh's playing in the wild card weekend. As always, Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for everybody for stopping by tonight. We'll have a game thread up tonight that'll have a running Twitter feed in it with all the highlights and all. So if you're bored looking for something to do, stop by that thread. At least put a comment in there and say hello or something like that. We kind of do that as a convenience. A lot of people aren't on Twitter, and maybe you like to get some the highlights, easy access to the highlights as they happen. I've found that Twitter stream that I set up gives you all that you need, and we invite you to stop by the site if you can. If you can't, we understand. And we just appreciate you showing up at this for these YouTube live streams and all. And Alex, thank you for putting them on. You do a great job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we will be back next week. We'll have a live analysis and coverage on the channel and, of course, on Steelers Depot throughout the week as well. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Peace and love, everybody.